What do you wish for on your 98th birthday?
I would like to be 100.
I think that's a good answer.
Kirk Douglas died a hero in 2020, celebrated for breaking Hollywood's blacklist and donating millions to charity. But in 2021, a bombshell memoir shattered that image forever. After 65 years of silence, the truth about what happened that summer night in 1955 finally came to light, and why a mother told her terrified 16-year-old daughter to just suck it up. Kirk Douglas was born on December 9, 1916, in Amsterdam, New York, and came from a poor family. His parents were Jewish immigrants from Russia, and his father, Herschel, worked as a ragman. From a young age, Kirk had to help his family. At just 5 years old, he started selling snacks to workers at a local mill. As he grew older, he took on many different jobs, over 40 by the time he was in high school. He worked as a newsboy, a janitor, and even delivered telegrams. These early struggles taught him how to work hard and keep going no matter what. In 1934, when he was 17, he changed his name to Izzy Dembski. He did this because he wanted to avoid the discrimination Jewish people often faced. Even though his family didn't have much money, Kirk earned a scholarship to St. Lawrence University in New York because of his academic talent. At college, he was not only a top student, but also a star wrestler. He even won the AAU Intercollegiate Wrestling Championship in 1938. During his time at St. Lawrence, he discovered a love for acting by performing in campus plays. This new passion was so strong that he borrowed money from the dean of his college to study at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York City. At the Academy, Kirk met Diana Dill, who became his first wife, and formed a close friendship with Betty Joan Persky, later known as Lauren Bacall. Lauren Bacall would later play an important role in helping Kirk start his Hollywood career. Before that happened, Kirk joined the U.S. Navy during World War II. He served from 1941 to 1944, working in anti-submarine warfare. After the war, he returned to New York, where he worked in theater, radio, and commercials, while improving his acting skills. Kirk's big break came in 1949 with the movie Champion. He played a boxer named Midge Kelly, who was ambitious and ruthless. At first, Kirk didn't want to take the role because it only paid $15,000. But his agent worked out a deal that gave him a percentage of the movie's profits, so Kirk agreed. The movie was made on a small budget of $595,000. Kirk trained with real boxers for 3 months to make his performance look authentic. He did most of his own stunts, which led to injuries, including a broken nose and cracked ribs. Despite the challenges, his performance was so powerful that it earned him his first Oscar nomination for Best Actor. The movie made over $2.5 million, a huge success for its time, and launched Kirk into stardom. Champion was not just a success for Kirk, it also changed Hollywood. The movie's realistic style inspired future films like Rocky and Raging Bull. For Kirk, the success meant he could now ask for higher pay and more control over his future projects, which was very rare for actors back then. In the 1950s, Kirk became one of Hollywood's biggest stars. In 1951, he starred in Ace in the Hole, a movie about a corrupt journalist. While it wasn't popular at first, it later became known as a classic. Kirk's performance as the dishonest reporter, Chuck Tatum, earned a lot of praise. In 1952, Kirk played a Hollywood producer named Jonathan Shields in The Bad and the Beautiful. The character was ruthless but complex, and Kirk's portrayal earned him his second Oscar nomination. The movie was a big hit, winning 5 Academy Awards and making over $3.5 million. Kirk's ability to play morally complex characters made him stand out as an actor. Kirk Douglas became one of Hollywood's biggest stars during the 1950s, with unforgettable performances that made him a legend. In 1951, He starred in Ace in the Hole, a movie about a journalist who used a tragic cave-in to boost his career. Douglas played the role with so much intensity that audiences both hated and admired the character. The story was inspired by a real event in 1925, where a cave-in involving a man named Floyd Collins became a media frenzy. Even though critics praise the movie now, it wasn't successful when it came out. It earned $3.1 million, but cost $1.8 million to make. People may not have been ready for such a harsh look at society, but over time, Ace in the Hole became a classic. In 2017, it was chosen for the National Film Registry, which recognizes movies that are culturally important. In 1956, Douglas played the artist Vincent van Gogh in Lust for Life. This role was one of his most emotional performances. The movie showed Van Gogh's struggles with mental illness and his dedication to art. Douglas worked hard to look like Van Gogh, sitting through long hours of makeup and wearing painful prosthetics. He even learned to paint, creating works in Van Gogh's style. The film was shot in real places where Van Gogh had lived and painted, like parts of France and the Netherlands. Its vivid colors made the scenes look like the artist's famous paintings. Douglas was nominated for an Academy Award for his role, but lost to Yul Brynner in The King and I. Despite not winning, he called this role his favorite. The movie earned $6.2 million, and many people still think of it as one of the best movies about an artist. In 1960, Douglas starred in Spartacus, a huge epic about a slave rebellion in ancient Rome. He also produced the movie through his company, Bryna Productions. It had a big budget of $12 million and was one of the most ambitious movies of its time. Douglas made a bold decision to hire Dalton Trumbo, a blacklisted writer, to write the screenplay. Trumbo had been banned from Hollywood for refusing to testify during the anti-communist hearings. At first, Trumbo wrote under a fake name, but Douglas decided to give him full credit. This was a risky move because the blacklist was still in effect, and groups like the American Legion threatened to boycott the movie. Douglas didn't back down and said he cared more about working with good people than following the rules. The risk paid off. Spartacus made $60 million and won 4 Academy Awards. Giving Trumbo credit was a big step toward ending the blacklist. While some argue that Otto Preminger's decision to credit Trumbo for Exodus came first, Douglas's actions were still important. He later said he was most proud of helping to break the blacklist, even more than the many movies he made. Bryna Productions, named after Douglas's mother, was a game-changer for his career. He started the company in 1955 to gain more control over his projects. Bryna made movies like Paths of Glory, The Vikings, and 7 Days in May. It also gave work to blacklisted writers, even though they were paid less than usual. The company expanded into television with shows like Tales of the Vikings, and even had other ventures like music publishing and stage productions. This independence allowed Douglas to take risks that big studios might not have allowed. Douglas worked twice with Stanley Kubrick, a talented but difficult director. Their first movie together was Paths of Glory in 1957, a powerful anti-war film. Douglas admired Kubrick's skills, but argued with him over the story's ending. Kubrick wanted a happy, commercial ending, but Douglas insisted on keeping the movie focused on his character, Colonel Dax, as a hero standing up against injustice. The movie didn't make much money, but critics loved it, and it became a classic. Their second collaboration was Spartacus, but their relationship became even more strained. Douglas hired Kubrick to replace the original director after the first week of filming. They clashed over many things, including the famous "I am Spartacus" scene, which Kubrick initially didn't like. Douglas fought to keep it, and it became one of the most iconic moments in movie history. At one point, their arguments got so heated that Douglas reportedly threw a chair at Kubrick. Despite their differences, the movie was a massive success and is still considered one of the greatest epics ever made. Years later, Douglas reflected on Kubrick, calling him a bastard, but also admitting he was incredibly talented. Their fights were intense, but Douglas appreciated the great work they produced together. Even Douglas's wife suggested therapy for them, which shows how much tension there was. Kubrick later used one of the books he read during these sessions as inspiration for his final film, Eyes Wide Shut. Kirk Douglas had a reputation for being difficult to work with, and it started early in his career. On the set of Champion, 1949, the movie that made him a star, his drive for perfection caused delays and endless arguments. He later admitted that this was when people began calling him difficult. As he became more famous, this reputation only grew stronger. He also clashed with his co-stars. During the filming of The Vikings, 1958, he had a heated argument with Tony Curtis, which caused production to stop for a while. His perfectionism and refusal to compromise often led to tension, but it also showed how seriously he took his work. Despite his difficult nature, many people admired his talent and work ethic. In a 1971 interview, Douglas said that while he didn't always agree with others, he respected their dedication and hard work. Being a big star during Hollywood's golden age was stressful, and Douglas felt that pressure every day. He was always under public and professional scrutiny. In 1958, he faced a huge financial crisis. After spending 18 months overseas on his business manager's advice, he came back to find he owed $750,000 to the IRS. In today's money, that would be over $7 million. His agent had mismanaged his investments through fake companies, leaving him broke and in debt. This put enormous pressure on him to make sure his next movies were successful. Douglas also felt the need to live up to his image as a strong, intense leading man. This added to his reputation for being difficult and may have contributed to his many affairs. He often took big risks with his roles. In 1949, against the advice of his agents, he accepted the role of a ruthless boxer in Champion. It was a small independent film, but it made him a star. Later, playing Vincent van Gogh in Lust for Life, 1956, was one of his most challenging roles. He called it one of the most painful films he ever made, showing how much effort he put into staying at the top of his game. Kirk Douglas's first marriage was to Diana Dill, and their love story began at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York City. They got married on November 2, 1943, just as Kirk's acting career was starting to take off. Together, they had two sons, Michael Douglas, born on September 25, 1944, and Joel Douglas, born on January 23, 1947. Both would go on to make their own names in Hollywood. From the beginning, Kirk and Diana's marriage faced serious problems. Kirk, who was born Isur Danielovich, was trying to make it in Hollywood and was often away from home for long periods. His fame was growing fast, and that only added pressure. In his autobiography, The Ragman's Son, Kirk admitted he had many affairs during this time, including with famous actresses like Rita Hayworth and Patricia Neal. These infidelities, combined with his frequent absences, created a lot of tension in their relationship. Michael was born in 1944, during a big moment in Kirk's career when he landed his breakout role in The Strange Love of Martha Ivers, 1946. Interestingly, Michael's full name was originally Michael Kirk Douglas, but he later dropped his middle name so he could stand out from his father. Joel was born in 1947, right when Kirk's career reached another level with his performance in Champion, 1949, which earned him an Academy Award nomination. Even though they looked like a happy Hollywood family from the outside, their marriage was falling apart. In 1951, Diana decided to file for divorce, saying Kirk's infidelity and long absences were too much to handle. The divorce became final on February 23, 1951, and it left Kirk devastated. Later, Kirk admitted that his drive to succeed and his ego made him blind to his family's needs. He regretted it for the rest of his life. In 1953, Kirk met Anne Buydens in Paris while filming Act of Love. At that time, he was engaged to Italian actress Pier Angeli, and Anne was working as a film publicist. What's surprising is that Anne rejected Kirk at first, even though he was already a big star. Kirk didn't give up. He won her over with a surprising act at a charity event. Kirk, wearing a tuxedo, volunteered to clean up elephant dung at a circus. Anne later said that this unexpected, humble gesture showed her a side of Kirk she hadn't seen before and made her fall for him. Their relationship wasn't easy at first. Kirk had to end his engagement with Pier Angeli, and Anne had to finalize her own marriage of convenience, which she had entered into during World War II. Despite all this, Kirk and Anne got married on May 29, 1954, in Las Vegas, just 9 days after Anne's divorce was official. What made their marriage unique was the honesty between them. In their book Kirk and Anne, Letters of Love, Laughter, and a Lifetime in Hollywood, Anne revealed she knew about Kirk's affairs but accepted them. She wrote, "As a European, I understood it was unrealistic to expect total fidelity in a marriage." Douglas was honest about his affairs, naming women like actress Jean Tierney and oil heiress Irene Reitzman. In one shocking story, he came home early to find Reitzman in bed with Sidney Chaplin, Charlie Chaplin's son. Despite these challenges, Kirk and Anne stayed together, showing a deep understanding of each other. Anne had her own share of dramatic moments. She stayed friends with a former lover, even visiting him in Paris while applying for American citizenship. On one visit, the ex-lover became jealous and tried to burn her face with a lit cigarette, saying, "I'll make sure he doesn't want you." This terrifying event seemed to bring Kirk and Anne closer, as Kirk vowed to protect her for the rest of their lives. Kirk and Anne had 2 sons together, Peter and Eric. Peter was born on November 23, 1955, and Eric on June 21, 1958. Peter grew up differently from his older half-brothers, Michael and Joel. He chose to work behind the scenes in Hollywood and became a successful producer. He often said he felt closer to his mother, Anne, than to Kirk, because Kirk's busy career kept him away. Eric, the youngest, had a difficult life. He struggled to live up to his family's name and faced issues with substance abuse and legal troubles. In the 1990s, Eric was arrested several times for disorderly conduct and drug possession. He also tried to become a stand-up comedian, but it didn't go well. During one of his performances at the Comedy Store in London, the audience didn't respond warmly, and Eric angrily shouted, "You can't do this to me! I'm Kirk Douglas's son!" An audience member fired back, "No, I'm Kirk Douglas's son," referencing Kirk's famous line from Spartacus. Tragically, Eric's struggles ended with his accidental death from a drug overdose on July 6, 2004. He was only 46 years old. The loss hit the Douglas family hard. Even in his later years, Kirk made public appearances that showed his strong connection to the industry. One special moment was at the 2018 Golden Globe Awards, where he got a standing ovation. Catherine Zeta-Jones was by his side. He was already in his 90s, but he kept his sense of humor and resilience. In a 2008 interview, he joked about losing his ability to speak after his 1996 stroke, saying, "What does an actor do who can't talk? He waits for silent pictures to come back." In 2009, at the age of 92, he performed in a one-man show called Before I Forget at the Kirk Douglas Theater. This was his way of sharing his life story directly with audiences, proving he still had the ability to entertain and inspire. Kirk passed away on February 5, 2020, at the age of 103. His son Michael shared the news and described him as a legend, a humanitarian, and a role model. Kirk had survived many challenges in his life, including a helicopter crash in 1991 and a severe stroke, but he always kept moving forward. At the time of his death, his wife Anne was 100 years old, and their nearly 70-year marriage was a testament to their love and partnership. When Kirk died, the world responded with an outpouring of tributes. Steven Spielberg, who knew him personally, praised Kirk's incredible career and his charm, which lasted until the very end. Mark Hamill called him one of the greatest stars ever and reminded everyone of Kirk's bravery during the 1950s Hollywood blacklist. Kirk had stood up for justice by working with filmmakers who were banned for alleged communist ties, showing that he wasn't just an actor, but also a man of principle. Meanwhile, Kirk Douglas and Natalie Wood were linked to troubling rumors that stayed alive for decades in Hollywood. These whispers suggested that in the summer of 1955, when Natalie was just 16 or 17, Douglas, a major star in his late 30s, had assaulted her. Over the years, these rumors wouldn't go away. In 2001, Suzanne Finstead's biography of Natalie Wood mentioned that Natalie had confided in friends, like actor Dennis Hopper, saying she had been molested by a former screen idol. However, the book didn't name Douglas directly. Even so, Hollywood insiders and gossip circles kept the story alive, with it occasionally resurfacing in quiet conversations and online. When Kirk Douglas passed away in February 2020, at the age of 103, the allegations against him came roaring back. On social media, Natalie Wood's name began trending alongside Douglas's. This showed how deeply the rumors were rooted in public memory and how hard they were to ignore, even after decades. It also reflected the way people were rethinking old allegations of misconduct, especially in the era of the hashtag #MeToo movement. Then, in November 2021, everything changed. Natalie's younger sister, Lana Wood, released a memoir called Little Sister: My Investigation into the Mysterious Death of Natalie Wood. In it, Lana made an explosive claim. Kirk Douglas had sexually assaulted Natalie when she was a teenager. According to Lana, the incident happened in 1955 at the Chateau Marmont. Lana described waiting in the car with their mother while Natalie went inside to meet Douglas. Her mother had high hopes that this meeting would help Natalie's career. But when Natalie finally returned to the car, she looked shaken and upset. Lana recalled waking up to the sound of the car door slamming. Natalie seemed disheveled and whispered frantically with their mother. As years passed and both sisters grew older, Natalie eventually shared more about that day. She told Lana, "He hurt me." Natalie didn't use words like molested, but she described the experience as terrifying and confusing, comparing it to being outside her own body. In her memoir, Lana explained why she finally spoke out. She said that after Douglas passed away, she no longer felt the need to stay silent. "With no one still around to protect, I'm sure she'll forgive me for finally breaking that promise," she wrote. This timing made the situation even more complicated. Kirk Douglas was no longer alive to defend himself, raising questions about whether it was fair to make such a claim posthumously. Lana's book also revealed the painful response Natalie got after the alleged assault. Their mother told Natalie to suck it up, pushing her to move on for the sake of her career. This shocking detail showed the harsh realities of Hollywood during that time. Young actresses often faced enormous pressure to sacrifice their safety and well-being just to succeed. Kirk Douglas made a surprising choice when he decided to leave almost all of his $61 million fortune to charity after he died on February 5, 2020, at the age of 103. This decision shocked many people, especially since his son, Michael Douglas, was also a famous actor. Kirk gave $50 million to different causes through the Douglas Foundation. He didn't leave any of it to Michael, which surprised everyone. But this decision showed how much Kirk cared about helping others, something he believed in throughout his entire life. The money Kirk gave went to important places and programs. One of these was St. Lawrence University, where Kirk had studied. The university used the money to fund the Kirk Douglas Scholarship, which helps smart students from underrepresented groups. He also gave money to the Sinai Temple in Los Angeles, the Kirk Douglas Theater in Culver City, and Children's Hospital Los Angeles. Kirk didn't make this decision out of nowhere. Back in 1964, he and his wife Anne had started the Douglas Foundation. This was long before it became common for celebrities to start charities. Kirk's gift was just the final chapter in a lifetime of generosity. The Douglas Foundation became one of the biggest charitable organizations in Hollywood. Over nearly 60 years, it gave away $118 million to many causes. Its work focused on education, healthcare, and the arts. One of the most important projects was fixing over 400 playgrounds in Los Angeles schools. These playgrounds were unsafe, so the foundation worked on them for 11 years, from 1997 to 2008. Kirk personally tested the slides during the dedication ceremonies, showing how much he cared about the project. Another focus of the foundation was helping homeless women. The Ann Douglas Center for Women at the Los Angeles Mission, started in 1992, became a place where women could rebuild their lives. The foundation also supported people working in Hollywood who needed help. It gave money to the Motion Picture and Television Fund, which provides health and housing services for struggling industry workers. In 2022, the foundation made another big contribution. It pledged to fund research on the human brain through a 5-year program at the University of Auckland. This program helps advance medical knowledge and shows how the foundation continues to help others, even after Kirk's passing. When news broke that Kirk left most of his money to charity, people were curious about how Michael Douglas would react. Michael didn't get upset or feel left out. He already had his own fortune of about $300 million, so he didn't need the money. Instead, he praised his father for being such a generous and caring person. In a message after Kirk's death, Michael called him a legend, a humanitarian, and a role model. This reaction showed that Michael understood his father's values and respected his decision. Michael himself followed in his father's footsteps by giving to many causes. After recovering from cancer in 2011, he donated millions of dollars to cancer research. Over time, his approach to giving became more focused. He started with what he called a sprinkle approach, giving to many different causes, but later he concentrated on supporting Jewish issues. In 2015, Michael won the $1 million Genesis Prize. He used it to start a $4 million fund to help interfaith couples feel more welcome in Jewish life. Kirk's commitment to helping others came from his own life experiences. He grew up poor, and his immigrant mother taught him to give, even when they didn't have much. She would share food with homeless people, which left a lasting impression on Kirk. This early lesson in kindness shaped his entire life. Anne, Kirk's wife of 65 years, was also a big part of the family's charitable work. She started the playground renovation project after reading about dangerous conditions in local schools. Kirk and Anne worked together on many projects, turning their family's name into a symbol of generosity.